Hi everybody, welcome back. We are week 2 of March's online card class. Thank you so much for returning. Week number 2, I am going to share how to make this card design. It's a very simple card design, and the focus in this week's video is going to be on your colouring and how to create layers in your stamping by using a masking technique. Everything you need for this card, if you're following along at home, is in your week number 2 card kit. The sentiment that I've used in this one, as you know, there's no sentiments in the Garden Patch stamp set. The sentiment I've used comes from Memorable Blooms. It's this one down here. I appreciate your thoughtfulness. Okay, so if you wanted to create it exactly as it is, that's where that sentiment comes from. I'll talk you through what we're going to be doing, what bits and pieces we have, and then we will make a start. So in your kits, you have a card base that's cut from white cardstock. I have used regular white. There's quite a few layers in this card, so you didn't necessarily need to use thick white. So white card base, you have a layer of that Storybook Moments patterns paper, and I've gone for this really nice green trellis style pattern. On the back is all the different sort of little sections of different images, but I really like this green and I wanted it to kind of match in with the carrots as well. You have a layer of early espresso card and you have a layer of basic white. Now you have 2 layers of basic white, so the one for the front is the one that is just ever so slightly smaller than your early espresso layer. The other size is your inner piece, which is your strengthener that we're going to stick in there like so. And then you have a banner. This banner is cut from the Unbounded Love dies and it's cut from Crumb Cake card. You'll also have in your kit some linen thread that we're going to layer underneath the sentiment just for a little bit of texture. And then you're going to need, what I would suggest is some post-it notes. You can use Stampin' Up! Masking paper. I find post-it notes work just as well. And also they're a really bright colour, so I'm not going to lose them. And the colours that I've used, I have used Copper Clay, Pumpkin Pie and Old Olive for my colouring. And I'm colouring with blends. I'd also recommend you having to hand a colour lifter, so the white one, and a light grey granite pen as well. I'm just going to use it to highlight my images to really make them pop off the page. So I'm going to start this by doing my stamping. So the images that I'm using the flower pots. I'm just going to take my watering can off. I've got the carrots and then I've got my sentiment. So just 3 stamps, and I'm stamping with Memento ink. So this one here. So you want to bring in the piece that you're going to be doing your stamping on. Okay, and this is the piece that we're going to work on. There's no layering in this stamping. It's all totally flat. Now, when you are stamping, when you're trying to create a sort of depth in your stamping, so you've got one in the foreground and one in the background. The one you need to stamp first is actually the one that you want whole. So the one in the foreground is the one that you want to stamp first. Okay, so I'm just going to put that over here so you can see it in shot. Give it a really good inking, and we're going to stamp the one in the foreground. So I'm going to stamp that about there. Now what I've done is I have stamped my plant pot onto a post-it note, and the sticky piece is under here, so you want to stamp it over towards where the sticky piece is, and then you want to cut it out. Now normally when we cut these out, we cut out with a little border, but in this occasion you want to cut out on the line. And then what you're going to do is you're going to stick your post-it note over the image, the one in the foreground, and then you're going to re-ink your stamp. Move it slightly so you've got one behind the other, or it looks like you're going to have one behind the other, and make sure it's straight and stamp. So then when you take your post-it off, there you have your 2 plant pots, 2 plant pot stacks, one in front and one in behind. Okay. Now, when it comes to doing your carrots, we want the carrot to be inside the plant pot. Take my carrot here. I'm going to stamp it like so. There we go. Now with this one, I've obviously used 2 masks, but I actually want this carrot to be in the plant pot, in this plant pot here. One there, and then I'm going to take my carrot mask and I'm going to stick my carrot mask over the top, like so. I'm going to stamp it. So there we have 2 carrots in 1 plant pot, and then down here. So I'm going to do the one in the foreground, like so. Lay my mask on. And this is really fiddly to cut out, this carrot, but just be patient with yourself. And then there's the one behind. There we go. So that's all my stamping done. So if I just bring that up so you can see it. So there we have plant pots filled with carrots. Yeah. So now we need to colour them. Okay, so you can see my carrots and my stamping up a little bit closer. So I'm going to use pumpkin pie, light and dark. I'm going to use copper clay, light and dark. That's for my pots. And I'm going to use old olive, light and dark, for the carrot tops. Okay, so I'm always going to start with my lighter colour. So I'm starting with a light pumpkin pie. And I'm just giving those carrots a nice colour base. So apart from our sentiment, there's actually no die cutting on this card. It's just a plain style card. I'm just going to add a bit of shading in the top and on those carrot lines. I tried to grow carrots once and they did not look like this. They were as thick as pencils. We did laugh when we pulled them out of the ground. Go back over with the light shade just to blend that all together. There we go. So they are my carrots. For the leaves, I'm going to do a little layer of old olive, the light shade. And then up here. And I'm not being too careful with my colour at this stage because it's just the base colour. Actually, I'm adding the detail with the next layer using the dark pen. Dark. So the dark, I'm just adding sort of little bits, little flecks of dark old olive in the base of the leaves, sort of on some of the detail. There we go. And now I'm going to blend all that together with the lighter shade. You may have heard me mention this before, but I always think of colour using blends. Like I think of a white bread sandwich. You put your light on first, then you put your filling, which is your dark, and then you do light again. It's just an analogy I heard once, and I thought that makes a lot of sense. So here I have light copper clay, and I'm just following the same technique that I followed last week. So obviously that one in the background is going to be a bit darker, isn't it? So now using my dark pen, so follow this on this other side here. There we go. So it looks a little bit mucky at the moment, but this is where when we use the blender, it will all fall into place. Right, so now I'm going to use the colour lifter. I just want to blend out some of this here. Like so. And then this is my favourite bit about this. So I'm going to take the light grey granite blend. I'm just going to really carefully follow the edge of this image around, because what it's going to do, it's going to create like a little bit of a highlight around the plant pot. I just think it adds a really nice finishing sort of touch. Almost makes them look as if they're in the background then. Okay, so once we've got that stage, we can now start to build the card. Right, so one thing I would suggest, once you finish with your mask, pop them in your stamp set so that you've got them for later, and it saves you having to do all that fussy cutting again. So thinking about this, I've got a black fine line pen, and I just want to accentuate sort of the edge of this card. I'm just going to go around the edge, just doing a little hand-drawn line. And then bringing up my card pieces. I have last week's card, there you are. So we have this layer. We can stick down the DSP layer straight away. I'm struggling with this. I'll put a little bit on there. Base layer. You can stick this white layer with your colouring on onto the layer of early espresso. And then this is going to get stuck down on our card front. And I want to stick it down with some dimensionals. Let me just grab some. I'm also going to use, because this is quite a big piece, I'm going to use some foam adhesive sheets. I love to use. Let's just cut a bit of this off. Because this is quite a flat card, this is one of the best ways that you can get dimension in. Let's pop that on there. Make sure we're going to stick this down the right way up. And this just goes in the centre. Whilst we're here, I'm going to pop this bit in as well. Okay, so that's starting to come together. All I've got to do now is my sentiment. My sentiment is going to be heat embossed with white embossing powder. So starting off, let's go over with an embossing buddy. And the sentiment is, I appreciate your thoughtfulness. So what a nice thank you card this is going to be. Maybe if you've got a gardener or someone that's helped you out in your garden, or someone that you know that likes gardening. Got any rogue embossing powder, just wipe that away. And then I'm going to heat that with my heat tool. I always like to put my heat tool on the second click, so it's on the fastest setting. So it's out of the hairdryer. That's all set. Now, linen thread. Yeah. So you have a little roll of linen thread. Mine is still on the roll. So what you want to do is you want to create like a false bow. So I like to do this by just folding it over sort of 3 times. And then taking the card. I'm going to put this about there and just stick it down with some double-sided tape. This is tearing tape, so I'll stamp out. Just lay that on roughly about there. I want it at an angle. So yeah, about there. And then when we put the sentiment on, it's going to sit there nicely. Sorry, I thought it wasn't quite done, but it is. And then take your sentiment, put a couple of dimensionals. I'm going to put my dimensionals on the card because I don't want to put it over where that ribbon is, or it's just going to look a bit lumpy. Sentiment all done, and there is our finished card. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you enjoyed today's card. I really enjoy the way the colouring is. I forgot to use my pencils actually on them, so just bear with me a moment. I'm going to add that detail in now. So can I get that back up? I can get that back up. So with your pencils, I'm just going to add in a little bit of definition. I'm just following some of these lines around. There we are. So it's just giving you a little bit more definition here. And then the same on this side. It's nice. There we go. So it's given it a little bit more definition. And now I can put my sentiment back on. There we go. Actually, it's a little bit further this way. I don't think I'm going to get that off now. Let's try. It will come off. I'm just going to put another couple on. I'm just going to move it ever so slightly this way because it was hiding the carrots. There we go. That's better. So there is our finished card number 2. It's definitely finished now. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions about these cards, please do reach out to me. And I look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week for card number 3, which is always my favourite out of the 4. So do join me then. Bye for now, everyone.